AITA for not telling my parents it was my birthday? They blamed me for forgetting it. I, 16F, have never really been the type to make a big deal out of my birthday. It's not that I don't care about it, but I've just always been a bit more laid back about these things. Maybe it's because I'm not one of those people who loves being the center of attention. Don't get me wrong, my parents love me, but they've always been more on the practical side of things. You know, like here's a cake, here's a gift, happy birthday, now let's move on. This year, my 16th birthday was coming up and I didn't feel any different. I didn't plan anything special, didn't remind anyone, and just figured it would be another ordinary day. The night before, I went to bed like usual with no real expectations. When I woke up the next morning, it was just like any other day. I got up, got dressed, and headed downstairs. My parents were both already up. My dad was in the living room sipping his coffee and reading the newspaper, while my mom was in the kitchen making breakfast. I walked in, said good morning, and they both responded with their usual good morning, sweetie, but there was no mention of my birthday. I didn't say anything because I wasn't going to be the one to bring it up. I mean, it's my birthday. Shouldn't they be the ones to acknowledge it? I grabbed some toast, ate quickly, and then headed off to school. On the way there, I couldn't help but feel a little off. 16 is supposed to be a big deal, right? Like, I'm supposed to be celebrating or something. But instead, it felt like just another day. I tried to shake it off, telling myself that maybe they were planning something for later, maybe a surprise or something, and I didn't want to ruin it by acting like I was disappointed. At school, things were pretty normal. Classes were the same as always, but during lunch my best friend came up to me with this big smile on her face. "Happy birthday," she said, handing me a little card. I was genuinely surprised and touched. I hadn't mentioned my birthday to anyone, so the fact that she remembered meant a lot to me. Inside the card she had tucked in 20 quid, which was super sweet. I thanked her and we sat together during lunch talking about random stuff. I didn't tell her that my parents hadn't remembered. I was still holding out hope that they hadn't forgotten. The rest of the school day passed by in a blur. My teachers didn't say anything, which wasn't surprising since they have hundreds of students, so they can't be expected to remember everyone's birthday. But every time my phone buzzed with a notification, I would check to see if it was a message from my parents. It never was, just the usual texts from group chats or random notifications from apps. When the final bell rang, I packed up my stuff and headed home. I walked through the front door and there were my parents, just like they were that morning. My dad was back in the living room watching TV this time, and my mom was in the kitchen prepping dinner. They both greeted me with the same casual "hi sweetie" as always, and I felt this weird mix of emotions: disappointment, confusion, maybe a little anger. But I didn't say anything. I just nodded and went upstairs to my room. I tried to distract myself by hopping on Minecraft with some friends. We played for a couple of hours and it was fun, but that nagging feeling in the back of my mind wouldn't go away. Did they really forget? It seemed impossible, but as more time passed, the more it seemed like they had. Eventually, I got hungry and decided to go downstairs to see if dinner was ready. When I got to the kitchen, I saw that my mom had made fried rice. It's one of my favorite meals, so a part of me thought maybe this was her way of acknowledging my birthday without making a big deal out of it. But there were no candles, no cake, no happy birthday, nothing, just a regular dinner. We sat down to eat and the conversation was the same as it always was. How was school? Any homework? That sort of thing. I wasn't going to be the one to bring it up. I just couldn't. After dinner, I went back to my room, laid on my bed and scrolled through my phone. I kept waiting for something to happen, for them to come upstairs and say, "Surprise!" We didn't forget, but nothing happened. The hours ticked by and before I knew it, the day was over. My 16th birthday had come and gone without so much as a happy birthday from my parents. I went to bed that night feeling a mix of emotions, mostly sadness but also a kind of numbness. It's hard to describe. I was definitely hurt. I kept trying to rationalize it, telling myself that maybe they were busy, maybe they had a lot on their minds, but the truth was it just felt like they didn't care enough to remember. The next day, I got up and went to school like normal. I just pretended like everything was fine, and for the next couple of days I went about my routine, trying not to think about it too much. But every time I walked past my parents, that little voice in the back of my head would whisper, "They forgot." 3 days after my birthday, I came home from school and everything seemed normal at first. I went upstairs to drop off my bag, then came back down to grab a snack. As soon as I walked into the kitchen, my mom was standing there, arms crossed, and she looked pissed. "Why didn't you tell me it was your birthday?" she practically yelled as soon as she saw me. I was stunned. I didn't know what to say. "You didn't say anything. How was I supposed to know?" "Why didn't you remind me?" she continued, her voice getting louder with every word. I stood there, speechless, trying to process what she was saying. Was she really blaming me for them forgetting my birthday? "I didn't think I had to remind you," I finally managed to say, my voice small. "It's my birthday, I thought you'd remember." That only seemed to make her angrier. She went on and on about how I should have said something, how I should have reminded them, how it was basically my fault that they forgot. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It felt like I was in some kind of twisted dream. How was this my fault? Shouldn't they be the ones apologizing for forgetting? But no, instead I was the one being yelled at as if I had done something wrong. I tried to defend myself, but she wasn't having it. She was so mad that she ended up grounding me. It was like she needed to blame someone, and I was the easiest target. The next morning I woke up with this heavy feeling in my chest. The whole thing from the night before was still fresh in my mind, and I couldn't shake the frustration and hurt. I got ready for school in a daze, my mind replaying the argument with my mom over and over again. It was so surreal that they forgot my birthday and then somehow made it my fault. But what really stung was the fact that I was grounded and had my phone taken away because of it. Like, how does that even make sense? I trudged my way to school, my head down, just trying to get through the day. As soon as I walked through the gates, my best friend spotted me and waved me over. She could tell something was off just by looking at me. "What's wrong?" she asked as soon as I got close. Everything I'd been holding back suddenly come flooding out. I hadn't planned on telling anyone, but before I knew it, I was spilling the whole story to her right there in the middle of the schoolyard. "I don't even know where to start," I said, my voice shaky. "My parents forgot my birthday, and then 3 days later my mom freaked out on me, yelling that I should have reminded them like it's my fault they forgot." She looked at me in disbelief, her eyes wide. "Wait, what? Are you serious?" I nodded, biting my lip to keep from crying. "Yeah, and then she grounded me and took my phone away." "What the hell? That's so messed up," she exclaimed, shaking her head in disbelief. "You shouldn't have to remind them, it's your birthday. They're your parents, they should remember." "I know, right?" I said, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. It felt good to have someone validate my feelings, but it also made the whole situation feel even more unfair. We stood there for a moment, just absorbing the ridiculousness of it all, when she suddenly grabbed my hand. "You know what? Screw them. We're going to celebrate your birthday properly. My family can help. We'll throw you a party or something. You deserve to have a real birthday, not whatever that was." I looked at her, a little overwhelmed by the offer. "Really? You'd do that for me?" "Of course. You're my best friend, and besides, we can't let your 16th birthday just go by like this. It's a big deal. Let's make it fun. We can do it this weekend if you're free." I hesitated for a moment, thinking about how my parents might react if they found out I went ahead and celebrated without them, but then I remembered how they had treated me, and a small part of me felt like I deserved to have a birthday that actually felt special, even if it wasn't with them. "Yeah, okay," I finally agreed, a small smile forming on my lips. "Let's do it. I could really use a pick-me-up after all this." "Perfect," she beamed. "I'll talk to my parents tonight, and we'll get everything planned out. It's going to be awesome, I promise." The rest of the day felt a little lighter after that. I still had that lingering ache in the back of my mind, but knowing that my friend cared enough to help me celebrate made everything feel a bit more bearable. It was nice to have something to look forward to. Something that would help take away the sting of what had happened with my parents. Over the next couple of days, we secretly planned the small celebration. My friend's parents were completely on board with the idea and even suggested we have a little gathering at their house with just a few close friends. They wanted to make sure I had a day that was all about me, and honestly, it felt really good to be cared about like that. When the weekend finally came, I headed over to my friend's house feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness. I hadn't told my parents about the party. I figured if they weren't going to acknowledge my birthday, they didn't need to know about this. It wasn't like I was doing anything wrong, but a part of me still felt a bit guilty for going behind their backs. As soon as I walked into my friend's house, I was met with a chorus of happy birthday from everyone there. They had decorated the living room with streamers and balloons, and there was even a homemade cake sitting on the table, complete with 16 candles. It was simple, but it was perfect. I was honestly touched by how much effort they had put into making the day special for me. It wasn't about the decorations or the cake. It was about the fact that they cared enough to do this for me, especially after everything that had happened with my parents. We spent the afternoon hanging out, playing games, and just enjoying each other's company. My friend's mom had even made some of my favorite snacks, and we all gathered around the table, laughing and talking like it was any other birthday party. But for me, it was more than that. It was the celebration I hadn't gotten from my own family, and it meant the world to me. At one point, my friend pulled me aside and handed me a small gift. "I know you said you didn't want anything big," she said with a smile, "but I wanted to get you something special, just something to remember today by." I opened the box, and inside was a delicate necklace with a small charm, a tiny heart. It was simple, but it was beautiful, and I could feel my eyes welling up with tears. "Thank you," I whispered, hugging her tightly. "This is perfect." I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for my friends and their family. They had gone out of their way to make sure I had a special day, even when my own parents hadn't. It wasn't about the gifts or the party, it was about the love and care they showed me, and that was something I would never forget. The party at my friend's house had been perfect in every way. It wasn't extravagant or over the top, but it was exactly what I needed, a reminder that I was cared for, that I mattered to someone. The decorations, the cake, the laughter, the thoughtful gift. It all felt like a balm to the hurt I'd been carrying around since my parents forgot my birthday. For those few hours, I didn't feel like the girl who was overlooked or forgotten. I felt loved. I felt seen. As I approached my house, though, that warmth began to flicker. The closer I got, the more I was reminded of the reality waiting for me on the other side of the front door. I had spent the entire day away without telling my parents where I was going. A part of me knew they probably wouldn't care. They hadn't cared enough to remember my birthday after all. But another part of me couldn't shake the anxiety that had settled in my stomach. Would they be angry? Would they even notice? The house was quiet. "Mom? Dad?" I called out, my voice tentative. There was no response. I walked further into the house, my heart pounding a little with each step. I finally found them in the dining room, sitting at the table, staring at their phones. They looked up when I walked in, but there was no anger in their eyes, just mild surprise, as if they had only just remembered I existed. "Where have you been?" my mom asked, almost disinterested. "I was out," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. I wasn't in the mood to explain myself, not after the way they treated me. If they couldn't be bothered to remember my birthday, I didn't see why I should be expected to check in with them. "You were gone all day," my dad added, his eyes narrowing slightly. "We didn't know where you were." I shrugged. "I was with a friend. We just hung out for a bit." My mom said, shaking her head, "You should have told us where you were going. It's not safe to just disappear like that." I wanted to laugh at the irony of her words. Now she cared about my whereabouts, but instead of laughing, I just nodded. I was too tired, too drained to deal with it all. All I wanted was to go to my room and hold on to the happiness I'd felt earlier before it slipped away completely. I'm sorry, I said quietly, though I wasn't sure if I meant it. I wasn't sure if I was apologizing for being out all day or if I was just trying to keep the peace. Either way, I didn't wait for a response. I turned and walked out of the dining room, heading straight for my bedroom. I lay there for a while, staring up at the ceiling, my mind racing. The day had been such a whirlwind of emotions: hurt, anger, joy, relief, and now that I was alone, it was all catching up to me. I thought about the party, about the way my friend had gone out of her way to make me feel special. I thought about the gift she had given me, the necklace that still hung around my neck, a tangible reminder that someone cared.